All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we'll be taking a look at that decision by the government. So we've got two gentlemen here with us. Mr. Fidel Okira is the Managing Director, Nigeria Railway Corporation. We also do have Ahmed Adamu, who is an Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Nile University of Nigeria, Abuja. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for
coming. Good morning. Compliment.
Well, we had a bit of back and forth this morning on this policy on the show. We're just wondering, how will it work? Is it the way to go or not? Do we have data? What do they rely on? Is it well thought out? So we'll wait to see what he was thinking. But for the Railway Corporation, Mr. Okiria, at zero cost. So you could imagine that there might be a rush for that, because you have people who may have not initially thought, do I, should I not? So let's go try it and see if it's free. After all, people love free things. Okay. So how are you taking this in?
This is not the first time. We did it 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was hectic, and I say we've yet to recover from that.
Oh.
But however, what is government for? Government is to make sure that people have comfort as much as possible, and we are quite willing and wishing to provide that service. You know, you don't forget, in more than other developed world, they get this thing either directly or indirectly. You call, during the COVID, even companies, private companies, we are giving relief. And those without job, like in UK, US, everywhere, at least provide the minimum something to live in. So it's a good thing that the government considered we should do free service, but they're also willing to provide the resources to do it. We are hoping this time they are going to give us fuel, and those 15 days we are going to provide the free service. They are also willing to provide at least the money we pay to the cleaners for the security.
Did that happen the last time, 2 years ago?
No, it didn't.
Okay, that's why I say you have to recover from that.
Yeah.
Wait, how? These are the NRC still has debts to pay or infrastructure?
Yeah, we bought we bought diesel to run those services. And, you know, passenger service don't really make it's a sort of service that government is providing because of the impact on the economy, the impact on the commerce, when people can move their products at a very reasonable rate is quite, I can say it's a powerful, and you can't quantify it in terms of naira and cover. That's what I would say. But this time, we'll be giving notice to our, we are already on the e-platform, e-ticketing platform. What we are trying to do that, if you have not secured your ticket online, don't come to the station. Or like before now, we check you into the platform because you can get the ticket
at the station.
But we want to ensure, since it is free, to go on your phone, use the app, use your line to get your ticket before coming, because the counter at the station will be closed. Because it will be difficult to manage. A person may just be going somewhere else and try to change his mind and say, I can follow this train to Kaduna and also come back. While instead of saying, don't let me use it, but ensure you get your ticket before you come to the station.
But the last time this was done, or when you tried them going online, were they compliant? Did you still have people coming there without getting online and insisting that they were the most?
So we have a term, we can still come to the station and buy, because we have to give room for those people who don't have the
facility
access to go. But for these 15 days, we are shutting that facility to come to the station and buy.
I really feel, so from the little, excuse me, from the little that you have said right now, you've actually said a lot. The only question I'm going to ask is, I hope you didn't hear about this like everybody else did. Did you hear about it on TV?
No. we worked the cost. Throughout last weekend, we were working at the ministry and providing data
Okay, so you already given an inkling as to what precisely could happen.
Yes.
Did you also have the opportunity to give advice on how this should be implemented?
Yes, that's why it was discussed on how to prevent, the insecurity aspect of it. And that is why it was approved that people we can start checking people before getting to the station. It was approved not at the station. We discussed that, and we had that have to contribute that if you allow people to say you are get to the station to get tickets, what do you tell them when they are not able to, and the seats have been occupied? What do you tell them? Imagine somebody left Abuja to come to Itakbe to use the train to Warri, and without tickets, he came to Itakbe. Are you going to ask him to go back? And the seats or the trains are completely filled up. So it's better you have your ticket and be sure. And this also an avenue for people to get used to the e-ticketing platform, because people still try to come and buy at the station instead of, I won't go to the airport without having a ticket.
Yeah, some people do. Some people still go to the airport.
But you will not complain if you don't have.
Yeah.
But because of the different characters we deal with at the train stations, quite different from what you deal with at the airport.
Okay.
That is a major thing you should note.
We'll still come back to at least the logistics part of it. Dr. Adamu, from an economic perspective, how do you see this?
Well, first, you have to look at the practicality of this policy. Look at the routes that Nigerians follow, especially the poor people. It's not everywhere where the train covers for that transportation purpose. And if you look at the minibus, the public buses that the government say want to subsidize 50%, how practical is it like for a driver at the public park to now say, I will collect 50% of the transport fare, believing or trusting that President Tinubu will pay him the other 50%? When and how much is that person going to receive eventually? And then most of these drivers, when they take passengers, they want to collect the money there then to fuel their car. And then how long are they going to wait to receive the remaining 50% from the government to fuel their car to travel from one place to another? Most of these drivers don't even trust the government. Some of them are not even aware of this policy. So it's something that we wake up in the morning and the minister is saying that there's going to be 50% transportation reduction. And that's another quick policy we've seen in this administration. I don't think much time and much thought has been given to this policy. From economic perspective, everything you want to do as a government, as a policy, you have to look at the costs and benefits. Only God knows how much bill is going to be presented to the government at the end of this exercise. And then the accountability...
Is it really about everything you have to do? Because, for instance, they tell us that the rail doesn't really make profits. We just need to ease. Sometimes government takes on that burden. That's why it's called a subsidy.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you talk about the train. I said not everyone can get the train.
Yeah.
And not everywhere the train goes. So, for example, I'm from Katsina. I want to go to Katsina. There is no train from Kaduna to Katsina. So even if the train is zero, all the poor people that will travel from Kaduna to Katsina, they're excluded. People that will travel from Kano to Sokoto, they're excluded. Okay, so the train being zero, it does not affect majority of the poor people. The target is not achieved. And
so eventually there's that. It appears as though, sorry to jump in, it appears as though they said, go board the buses at the parks.
Yeah, so I told you about that, because the drivers will not collect 50% from passengers.
Even if they've discussed with them?
With who? With the government?
With government? Do you think they will just announce this without doing this?
But do you think the drivers will trust that in the future, the remaining 50% will be given to them? Because I told you, these drivers don't have the money to even fuel their car now. So with which money are they going to even transport these passengers in the first place? So if the government really has thought about this, will have given these drivers in advance the other 50% that they will use to recoup the 50% reduction and to fuel their car. So you look at the cost and benefit. The benefit is the impact on the economy. Post this program, what's going to happen to the economy? Are we going to see any change? We are going to go back to square one. So you spend a lot of money and we are back to where we were. And the train, you see a lot of people trooping. A lot of people will not get chance to get into the train. So this is something temporary. It's not for the long term. And as economists, when we look at policy, we look at sustainability of it. You start something, you stop. You are giving some people free tickets or discount on transport, and then a few days after, you're not giving them. So who's going to give them next? And what's going to happen to the economy? Are we going to see change? And these are all from the effect of the way the petroleum subsidy was removed. Because when you have to remove petroleum subsidy, there's so many stages you have to follow. Otherwise, you get yourself into this kind of situation, thinking of what to do, and trying things which might not work. So one of the things that they should have done is to invest in adequate, modern, and convenient mass transportation
They said they're
system.
working on CNG buses.
You see, these are things you do before you remove the petroleum subsidy, because the effect is going to be immediate and massive. Look at the inflation, close to 30%. These are all effect of it. No amount of subsidy in transportation will be enough to alleviate the poverty. And if you look at Abuja here, there are no options for mass transportation. Everyone must own their car if you have to travel. And if you have a big city like Abuja, like Lagos, where everyone must have a car, then you know that you don't have a sustainability in terms of your energy consumption. So big cities around the world, there are mass transportation where people don't have to use their transport, personal, so that you can reduce the cost, the expenditure per capita in the area of transportation. So for me, we should have to look at long term. Instead of spending money here and there and with no impact, rather if they have to go and invest in the transportation, let them wait for that. Instead of doing this short-term subsidy, let's do big one so that we can have the impact at once.
Well, some people will also say that, and I heard Mr. Dele Alake talk about how they're also trying to see how they can counter the fact that transporters take advantage of, people who want to travel in this season. We've seen how in many other places that you've mentioned, usually during the festive period, we'll see discounts, sales, as a matter of fact, to celebrate with the people. But in Nigeria, reverse is the case. We increase the price of everything because we know people must buy. Even if you didn't buy rice the whole year, we know that during Christmas, people will buy rice. Most times people reserve traveling until, the final part of the year. They know people must travel. And so we see that, independent transporters tend to prey on their customers. Do you think that will have any effect on the tendency of, transporters to want to do this in this season?
If the transporters have the intention or the tendency to increase the fares at this time, they will do it. This policy will not change anything. And we have to do sensitization, orientation of the people to understand that they are also responsible. Leadership is not only by the president or governors. We are all leaders at our levels. So if you have opportunity to make life easy for Nigerians, you should do it. But people have to feel that the government is doing enough for them so that they can also do their part. But if people are thinking that they are being shortchanged, they are their own government. They provide everything for themselves. The government is not any support to them. So they will explore any opportunity to exploit people. So for me, I think if we could have invested in modern transportation, especially transport systems that use alternative energy, that are cleaner and cheaper, especially the use of gas for transportation, which we have a lot of gas. So that could have reduced, even if there are tendency of increasing the fares, even if they have to increase it, it still not be as high as it will have been by now.
Mr. Carrier, you wanted to...
I just want to provide an insight about, the government is talking with the Transport Association. It's not that when you go to that park, you just go and it just come to 50% down. They've selected some routes. They've selected some transporters that are providing heavy mass transit. And they provide, for instance, say Abuja to Katsina. Also company should provide the free, not that you go to that bus stop and you expect the driver there to reduce some. And they have also done, because we all work together, the association of, and the president and the secretary were in the meeting, and they have picked those they think they are reliable to provide this service.
Transport companies?
Yes.
So they have participating transport companies. And
not that
totally optional.
Yeah. So it's not that you just go to this garage, you pay 50%. It's not like that. Some transport have been selected based on the association.
But
that they know they have reliable buses, not just this thing. So they have picked that and they have selected, I can't know how many buses now, but they have routes like Abuja, Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Abuja, Bauchi, something like that. And they have the number of buses that fly per day, and they will be monitored to ensure that they provide the number of passengers they have also already inputted.
Not fake your data.
No. They have provided your bus will carry as many people as that, and they are going to monitor it strictly to ensure that you perform. And that I think if by today or tomorrow, I expect at least the money for diesel for me will come.
Okay. Okay, so at least you have told them in the NRC what you need.
Yeah.
And you're here right now to also shed light to Nigerians on how to benefit from this zero transportation happening on the rail system. And you said people need to go online. So I'm helping to reiterate what Mr. Curia has said. You can only buy the ticket online. If you go to the rail station, you will not be able to get the ticket. But don't you think that there needs to be also mass awareness? Because look at, this is the headlines. Tinubu cuts transport fare by 50%. It has not said with participating companies. People don't know the details. So don't you think that there needs to have been, because this is almost knee-jerk somewhat. You said the thing is to start today. The announcement was made the day before. There wasn't, sufficient awareness on people being able to plan their journeys and being able to benefit from this system. Isn't there a problem with that?
There is no time that is good enough. I've worked with government for a long time, and there's nothing you do people will not have alternative option. Is to have the will to do it, and you don't expect the first day for it to be 100% perfect. That's what we accept. We are deceiving ourselves. So it's 15 days, as the doctor said. It's not just out of the blue. It is not what we sustain. I say, okay, let the transport be cheap forever. You've rightly explained that because of the season, people reserve their journey at the end of the year. At least I must visit my village. And the rush this time, at this Friday till the first weekend of the new year, people will definitely go and return back to their place where they have their livelihood. So we know this, and we expect. The government has thought it wise. They know the pain the people are feeling. And supply and demand, and there are going to be demand. And people always take advantage.
Okay. So, you want to say something?
Just before he says something, I want him to add to this. The arguments we had this morning was the fact that Shimbolin was feeling hard done by, that those who travel by air were not included. And he was wondering...
Part of what I'm asking is, what data the government are they going to rely on for this? Is it better to just make this kind of announcement, or if you really wanted so many people, the so-called poor people, to benefit from this, wouldn't you target some sort of waiver for the emoluments they get so that they will feel it? Because this is only 15 days. And it looks as if they don't know where to go, how do they get it? So if you really wanted to get to the poor people, you will get the allowances and let them get that cross-border.
Okay. But the argument, I'll go back to the argument which we had this morning, which is the fact that, air transporters were not included. And people feel that, look, a lot of people are flying these days. A lot of people who fly these days are not necessarily rich people. They are not people who have it all. People fly for a number of reasons. People put all of their resources many times because of the convenience. Is it they realize they have not been attacked? They have been attacked. Buses are being attacked. So sometimes people just pick these options because they weigh it all. And, do you think that airlines too should have been given some sort of rebate so that people too who have to fly this season could have felt the discount?
You see, I'm not supporting the transportation subsidy at all. So I cannot support for the mass transit, so for the road transportation, no for the airlines.
You don't support it at all?
At all. Because you look at the accountability of it, which I like what you're talking about, data. Now, if these transporters say we transported 1 million people, how would the government get to know these are exactly 1 million people? So you have to look at where is the data coming from and whether these information are genuine or not. Then you look at the benefits. Now, the president gave me subsidy, went to my hometown, enjoyed my celebration. I came back to Abuja. What happened? What next? Has that changed anything? No impact on the economy. So we are looking at the long term and sustainability of it. And then if you look at now information, the management of the information is also not adequate, because when you are doing a quick, last weekend he said, they had a meeting with all this. Last weekend, today we are Thursday. So now, if I'm traveling to Kazakhstan today, where do I go to get this bus? Do I know where? And do I know which bus? I don't have this information.
Right.
So the information is lacking, and that's why, because this program is being rushed, and there is no impact eventually.
All right. Ayo, Buki.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Kiria, my question is for you. You said earlier that during the engagement, at the ministry level, you had the opportunity to advise. I'd like to know what your advisory was, particularly for the implementation of this 50% reduction for the NRC.
What was advice?
This price reduction, our own is zero. So,
what was your advice to the government?
What was your,
Right.
yeah.
What was your advice to the government about it?
or they should provide what will enable us meet our costs to operate this thing. And they have taken that.
If you had an opportunity, I hope you can hear
So
me
my
now.
advice-
If you had an opportunity, I hope you can hear me now, Mr. Okiria, would your advice have been different, particularly in the light of dwindling revenues of the NRC in recent times? Can you hear me now, Mr. Okiria? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, if you had an opportunity to advise differently, would your counsel have been different, particularly based on the concern about dwindling revenues of the NRC in recent times, which you had cause to speak about at the budget defense at the House of Reps in recent times?
You see, whether you provide free service or not, there's no way in we pass on the dwindling economy. What will make us be competitive is to ensure we extend the track and services to every clinic of the country, so that people can actually patronize. We cannot make profit by passenger movement all over the world, but we can make it carrying freight, and that will balance the service you provide the people. As I said, God created us, and next to God is government. So if God provided, as I used to tell my friend, air, water, free, and government is to organize it, why wouldn't they do it and let the people benefit? I didn't choose to come out from Nigeria. Destiny brought me to Nigeria. So am I going to suffer from it? So the more, as I tell people, by the time we start doing business cases for government services, things became worse. I did do a study economy. I'm an engineer, but I read economy in secondary school. Luckily for me, I made A1. So, and people now start bringing business cases for things naturally government should provide. I tell people, when I was in primary school, after playing football, after closing of class, when I used to fab water on the street, and I put my head on the tap and cool myself down. But now, you say, okay, outline business case, this is for business, this is for government, and we are going down every day, instead of having humanity in place to provide this service for people. And you see, countries that are doing that are being blessed, because not everything is business. It's a painful thing to say, but we must provide for the people, and we must ensure things God has naturally given to this country all should benefit from it.
Are you trying to say that?
No, I'm not talking really now.
Are you trying to say that it's a sort of...
I provided advice for this program.
Okay.
And we met. Last weekend was not just the first time we were meeting. That was the finalizing stage where we get data and do some computation. So we have to know how many passengers each service we render carry per day. And instead of saying, okay, I said, instead of saying, let's buy tickets for the people, provide those costs that will enable us to operate without saying, a pattern on after the 15 days, how to continue. And the government took that and they are providing it.
Are you trying to say that this is a sort of subtle or passive marketing strategy for the NRC because people are really not using the service as they should?
No, that's not correct. People are using, people you can't imagine, people volunteer to stand from Itakpe to Warri because the volume of passengers going every day. You know, before the incident of the banditry, the passengers was rising, then it came down. But again, it's coming up, and it's costing us more now to operate too because we have to provide that security required to ensure that people will have minimum safety on train, both inside the train and outside the train at the train station, and have some little technology at least to monitor what happened on the track when staffs are not there. So I would say it's more expensive to operate now, but we just have to provide those services for Nigerians.
You said you were at the engagement where the 50% rebate was also discussed for the road transport sector. Would there have been more clarity for how that would be implemented? And specifically, should government have made the payment ahead of time just to secure the commitment of the road transporters?
So at 9:30 yesterday, I still left my minister and the road association in a meeting finalizing the modality. I know by the end of today, I think the program should be out. So that's what I can say on that. But I left them in the office.
I have more questions, but I'll yield the floor now for Ayo.
Thank you, Bukola. Well, let me come to Prof. When you were talking the other time, you were talking about the fact that, how will the modalities go, particularly for public transport services that are operated by the private sector. Are you in any way comforted or satiated in any way by the response that Mr. Engineer Okiria gave the other time about the selected transporters?
Yeah, like I said, if you say selected, that means there is inadequacy because you cannot select few transporters to transport everyone. It means that let me give you a perspective. If there are 100 people that go to Katsina today, and then you are selecting few transporters, those transporters will eventually transport not more than 40% of those people. So the remaining 60% are left out. And then you have to also look at the information and the accountability process of that. How do you trace and account for those people that they discounted? So for me, generally, it's the impact that I don't associate with, even though there are modalities which he said, but we have not seen them on public. Okay. The only thing we've seen is the announcement that is going to start today. And something that is going to start today, the information should not be available today. It should have been available a week ago, 3 days ago. And that's why we said, if you have to come up with policy, you have to think about it. You have to plan for it. You have to look at the consequences, what's going to happen at the end. Because the reason why we are doing all these things is to have impact on the economy. And if there is no impact on the economy, then why should we lose money? What if eventually the government will spend 1 billion naira on this program? Spending 1 billion naira and going back to square.
Perhaps, what you are essentially telling us, Prof, my apologies for butting in. Perhaps one of the things you are telling us is that government has to find a way to be accountable in this. But, when you were talking the other time about, how the whole thing was going to go, how is government engaging the transporters? I remember, and I'm sure you do as well, that government engages public transporters, transport operators, for election purposes through the Independent National Electoral Commission. So how do you think it'll be difficult to get the accountability system going now when we have a kind of template, in that these transporters are used, and we've been using them since the Fourth Republic began for logistic purposes. How do you think that will be difficult now?
Well, I don't trust that there is going to be a genuine and trustworthy accountability process in this. Because, like I said, if we have to rely on the road transporters, there is going to be some information asymmetry, because some information will not be much available to the government. The government will be difficult to hold those guys accountable. They can present any kind of bill, and then the government, I don't think, has any mechanism at place to trace that or to account for that. So for me, even if it has been done before, that should not justify doing it today, especially looking at the cost and the benefit and sustainability of it. So if you have done something adequate in the past, and it does not mean that you should keep doing it. It is not giving you the right result. So it's not about whether we have done it or not.
I just want to, ask two things that I'd like you to speak to very quickly. Number one, do you think it would have been better if government didn't do anything? And secondly, now that the federal government has done this part, don't you think it's also an opportunity for the states to intervene so that we can have more coverage as opposed to not doing anything at all?
Yeah, you see, the last question is good because, the states should have been the ones doing some of this kind of intervention as a temporary measure. The federal government should not do nothing. Of course, doing nothing is not an option, but doing the right thing. Why we are questioning this policy is not because we don't want government to work. We want them to work on the right things. And that's why I talk about sustainable investment in the transportation sector, especially transiting from the PMS and diesel usage to more cleaner and cheaper transportation. For example, the federal government can also open the railway system to allow private investors to build railways and allow private participation to also own these trains and these coaches. It would have been better for the government to focus on these sustainable policies and allow the states to do these short-term measures. The federal government should be looking at the long-term and sustainable policies, because the government will not be an efficient manager of this system. And I think the rail transportation will allow for a cheaper transportation system for a large population of Nigerians. So for me, I think we should focus on the policy of extending the railways across the country, providing alternative buses that use renewable or cheaper and cleaner energies, and allowing private participation to own these trains and coaches. The government can still control the railways after giving a concession to private sectors, so that maybe the charges on using the railways will still come to the government. But the ownership of those trains and coaches will be by the private participants, like we used to have in the UK.
Okay, we're going to wrap up now, but Mr. Kuria, so, we all want government to work. We want a good country so that everything can go smoothly. That's what everybody wants, I guess. But at the same time, people are working really hard to pay taxes. So they need to see that their taxpayers' money is utilized properly. So when people say accountability is key here, so what kind of thinking did you get in that meeting? When was there questions of accountability in terms of, if we needed to interrogate this, how much has government budgeted for this? Are we going to be able to see those details published so that people can ask questions, say, this is the amount of money that was budgeted and spent, and who got what? Will they publish that?
No, that's
in terms of what was the thinking?
No, from my sector,
Yeah.
I did some calculation. We are going to get 409 million for supply of diesel for 15 days. I'm not interested in money. I just want the diesel. I will know how much per liter per diesel. I will know how much of diesel we use per day. I will know how many passengers we carry per day on the different routes.
So what's the maximum number of passengers that you can take throughout the season?
Like for Abuja, Kaduna, it's average of 1,800.
Per day?
Yeah.
For 15?
For a whole day, yeah. Then Lagos, Ibadan, we have 1,900 and something. Then for the Lagos mass transit, we have close to 3,000 a day. That's from Ijoko to Ido, then Agbado to Apapa.
Are those the only functions?
Worry.
Okay.
I think about 1,800 a day. But now that we know it's festive period, people will move massively.
Do you intend to increase the number of services that you operate?
No, we are not increasing. We are adding more coaches.
You're adding more coaches?
Yeah.
Okay, so you intend to be able to take more people,
yeah.
Or you're not going to increase the frequency?
No. Because we are trying to limit our service only for day. We don't want to go into the night.
Okay.
All right, we need to go. So, but there are still very many unanswered questions about some of these things. So I know it's for a time limit, but at the same time, if it's expenses that will not improve the economy generally, if it's for luxury, just wonder. But this is how far we can go on this segment this morning. Mr. Fidel Okera is the Managing Director of Nigeria Railway Corporation. That's the NRC. He's given us data concerning what will happen there. And then Ahmad Adamu, Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Nile University of Nigeria in Abuja. Thank you for coming on today as well.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All
right, well, back in a moment. Stay with us.